Welcome back to the Timber Store series. This is part 3 where we're going to be finishing the whole timber store. If you missed part 1 and 2, then I'll link them in the description down below. In part 1 we made the pine framework, and in part 2 we added on the plywood facing and waterproofed the bottom. So we've got quite far already, but in this part we're going to finish the whole timber store. It's going to look fantastic. I hope you're enjoying the series so far, and I'm interested to hear what you think about it at the end. So in this video we're going to be putting on the roof, felting it and attaching all the cladding. And I also forgot we're going to be adding a door because it needs a door. So the first thing to do was lift up some plywood sheets onto the roof. So I needed help from my dad and brother because these were very heavy. So when I was lifting them on, I started to screw them down to the pine beams. Now, where 2 of the sheets meet, that didn't necessarily mean it was directly above a beam. So there was a bit of flex in the joining areas. Also, having a single plywood roof, it was quite thin, and I'm going to be adding felt and nailing into it, and there'll be a lot of flex there and the nails might go through. So I decided to double it up, which made it a lot stronger, and it allowed me to walk across the roof while I was felting a lot easier and safer. Like I said, if I stepped on the join where there wasn't a beam, then there was a lot of flex there and I might have fallen through. So 2 layers is the way to go for me. Now for the second layer, I made sure that I attached the sheets in a different orientation so none of the joins were in the same place, and that also made it a lot stronger. So now it's time to do the felting. And I decided to go for ICO Super Felt, which gives, I think, a 15-year warranty. You can buy different grades of felt, some that last 5 years, and you can get the good quality stuff like this, which lasts 15 years. And I also applied some felt adhesive to join each layer together. I'm pretty sure you can actually add this stuff all over the whole roof, but I've seen other people just do it along the join, so I decided to do that. And I'm using clout nails, which are especially used for felting. Now on each sheet of the felt, the end that's going to be exposed, the overlapping end, I'm nailing the clout nails at 50mm intervals, and the top end, which then later will be overlapped by the next sheet, I'm nailing at 150mm because it doesn't need to be as tight because there's going to be another sheet on top that will be nailed at 50mm intervals. I hope that makes sense. So I made sure I left enough overhang around the edges of the roof that I can then nail around the overhang, so it should give a really nice, neat look. Now, a bit like wrapping a present, I made sure the corners look neat, so I folded them so the excess felt was on the inside of the joint, so it left a really nice, clean look on the corner. Now, in every filmmaker's career, you'll probably get to the point where you lose some footage, and that's exactly what's happened here. For some reason, I must have deleted some clips that I shouldn't have, and that is the footage of me screwing the battens onto the wall, but hopefully you can picture it being done. So what I've done here is I've got some duraply, and I've been cutting up into strips that are 50mm long on the table saw, and I'm using them as battens and screwing them along the outside of the wall. And you need to add battens when you're fitting coated cladding, and that's because the cladding needs airflow. If there wasn't any airflow with this cladding, there could be moisture behind it and then mold or rot can start. So with this painted cladding, you need it to be off the wall so it can breathe and dry out after it rains. So what you saw me do is I'm adding some insect mesh on the bottom and the top because there will obviously be a gap behind the cladding and I don't want insects to go up behind the cladding or a wasp nest to start. So this insect mesh I just screw to the bottom of the battens and the top, and then I can clad right over it. Now the cladding I'm using is called Finish Line, which is exclusively available at Latham Timber. I think it looks a lot smarter than Feather Edge, which is the wedge shaped cladding you see most commonly. But this cladding comes in a range of colours. I chose the slate colour because it ties in nicely with the other garden furniture we have, like the swing seat I made. And the paint they're using is a Sansin waterborne paint, which is brilliant for exterior use, and it sort of locks the wood in a breathable envelope. And the wood used for the cladding is Accoya timber. If you didn't know what that was, that is a softwood that goes through a treatment process called acetylation, which basically gives it the properties of a hardwood. And with the Sansin coating on top, it is perfect for exterior use and will last a very long time. Another good thing about this cladding is it's attached with hidden fixings. So it's sort of like a tongue and groove, and you drive the screws in the tongue area and the groove of the next piece of cladding covers over the screw head, so you don't see any fixings, so it leaves a very nice finish. And the screws I used were Spax stainless steel screws with a Torx head, so they're really quick and easy to drive in with the Torx head, but also using stainless steel screws is they won't corrode outside. Now, as you can see, with this end of the timber store where the door is, I had to cut the cladding to size to go either side of the door. And the two end walls definitely took the longest to do because I had the door to worry about, but also the slope of the roof, which wasn't too bad in the end because I just measured the angle with a bevel gauge and then I cut that out with the track saw. So with the cladding meeting the roof, I didn't go all the way to the top, I just went to the height of the beams, and as you can see there was some black insect mesh at the top, and that's going to help with the airflow behind the cladding as well. And you may notice with the first piece of cladding I put on, I raised it up with a sheet of plywood so it was off the floor, and that's going to allow cold air to get underneath and go up the back of the cladding. I just want to thank the people that commented on the previous video. I got lots of good suggestions for lighting for the timber store, to solar powered lights, to loft lights, and even a sunlight in the roof. I decided to go for the loft lights. I think that's the perfect option for me because even though this is not a loft, it's still the exact thing I need, which is a small battery powered box with a bulb on the end. I think it'll be perfect for this. I can just screw it onto one of the beams in the middle of the workshop and that should give me enough light. Also, when I have the door open, a lot of light does get into the timber store. And I'm not going to be working in there, I'm just going to be going in to get a piece of wood and walking back out. So with making the door, I made it pretty much the same way I made the walls. I started off with a pine frame and then screwed plywood to it. I decided not to screw plywood on both sides as that will really add a lot of weight. And in the end, the door did actually weigh a lot. So I ended up putting 3 gate style hinges, which are those classic long ones. And it does hold. I think I might need to add 2 more to make it 5 hinges. I've been using the timber store now and it seems to be holding up. But just to be safe, I might add some more hinges in the future. Just screw a couple more on. So with a lot of sheds, the cladding on the door runs in an opposite direction to the walls of the shed. However, because the cladding I'm using, it has to be off the wall. So if I were to do that and have the claddings running vertically, I would need the insect mesh to go down the 2 long sides of the door, which would look odd when you open the door and you would see a gap there. So I decided to keep the cladding running horizontally and keeping it going the same direction all the way along the timber store. So then there's a gap on the top and bottom of the door, which you won't see, so I think it will look better in the end. Now I also added a handle to the door and a latch so I can lock it up. And I also added one of those hooks to keep the door open, so when I'm loading up the timber store, it won't be flapping in the wind. Now one thing I didn't mention is when I'm cutting the cladding to size on the miter saw, I'm obviously exposing some fresh wood and some uncoated wood. So when you buy some finish line, they give you a pot of touch-up paint so you can seal up the ends again. Also, if you scratch the cladding or knock it and dent it, you can touch it up with some more paint and cover up the scratches. So I also added some vents on the bottom of the door because with an outbuilding like this and having the soffit vents at the top in the roof area, that allows the hot air inside the shed to escape through the soffit vents in the roof area, but you do need cool air to enter the shed. So I read online it's a good idea to have some vents on the bottom of the shed so cool air gets drawn in at the bottom and then the hot air rises inside the shed and can escape through the top. So hopefully all the wood I store in there won't get mouldy and get condensation on it because there'll be sufficient airflow. So we're nearly at the home stretch and it's one final wall to do. I learned a lot on this project. As you know, I'm more of a furniture maker, I would probably classify this work as more carpentry. I'm more of a fine woodworker, but I have learned a lot with this project about, framing and doing exterior work. So I hope you've enjoyed this series and you learned something. Maybe you're interested in building a workshop in your garden. Obviously it doesn't have to be a timber store. I'm building this to be a timber store for me, but this could just as easily be a home workshop for someone or a studio or, somewhere to paint. Basically, it's just a great outbuilding. So if you've been thinking about making one for a while, I hope this series has been helpful to you. And I hope you're looking forward to my future builds. Now with this timber store, I'm going to be able to make a lot more things, a lot more bigger projects because I have the space. And talking about more space, I might be getting a new tool in the workshop that starts with a C and ends with a C. If you can guess what it is, comment down below. And with that tool, I got a lot of cool projects planned for the future. I'm looking forward to showing you them. If you're new to the channel and you like what you see and you want to see the upcoming builds, make sure you subscribe. If you enjoyed this series, make sure you give it a like. If you've got any questions, remember to comment down below. And if you want to support the channel, then I'd really appreciate it if you shared this series with your friends or become a patron where you get an exclusive video every other week, early releases to my main channel videos, your name in the workshop, and discounts on my store. And thank you to all my current patrons who have made this series all possible. So thank you for sticking to the end of the video, and I will see you very soon for the next one. Bye.